Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thanks for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. What are we talking about today, Charles?
Choose your fighter.
Choose your fighter, like some Mortal Kombat stuff?
I mean, kinda. In the market like today, companies have to choose which avenue is going to be the most beneficial. Is it fraud protection? Is it finance? Is it recruiting? Is it marketing? Is it a combination of all? And we're going to help break that down.
So it's kind of like when the going gets tough, the tough get going, but you got to figure out what part of tough you want to be.
Yeah, what foot steps forward first?
That's fair. All right, well, before we do that, we have to do all of the other stuff that we always have to do and say. You can find us on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, just about anywhere. And if you could, wherever you do take in your podcasts and your content, if you could like, subscribe, and rate, it helps push us out, gets us some more momentum, and we can do some even cooler stuff than the cool stuff that we already happen to be doing.
You can also go to centspermilepodcast.com where you can submit to be a guest, to become a sponsor, or even to suggest a topic. You see what I did there, Paul?
I did. Well, yeah. But wait, sponsors? Who's our sponsor today, Charles?
MyCarrierPortal, the trusted by brokers brand, preferred by carriers. Descartes MyCarrierPortal is an industry #1 onboarding and fraud prevention platform. Less friction, more trust, faster onboarding. That's Descartes MyCarrierPortal. Check them out at mycarrierportal.com.
All right. Well, that being said, it is time for the news.
It's time for 10-2 News, where we bring you the most up-to-date recent news that might affect you in trucking. And there's nothing more recent or up-to-date than talking about the new Prime Minister of Canada, given everything that's happening and the impacts all of that is having on trucking. I mean, they have now put their best foot forward over there. And Prime Minister Mark Carney has taken the front stage for Canada. And when you're talking about the whole demographic and dynamic that's happening between the two sides right now and how much tariffs has played a role, no matter what side of this you sit on, we're seeing that uncertainty has effects on the market. We're seeing it right now. The rates are tanking. The companies are sitting there trying to figure out where to place their pieces on the board, and no one knows because every day it changes. It's a very uncertain time, and it's very stressful for anyone that's trying to plan the position of their company. What was interesting is I wanted to spend a little bit of the news time to introduce people to Mark Carney. It's not a name that you often hear, especially sitting in America. And so I pulled up this cool thing that shows 55 facts on him. Number 1 fact is his signature is on Canadian currency. Number 2, he has never held a public office. He served as the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance, where his annual salary was $1. You're starting to see the trend here, Paul? When you're choosing a fighter, I mean, I think the current administration's got to be watching this guy. He was also the first non-British person to become governor of the Bank of England since it was founded in 1694. At 43, he was the second youngest person to serve as governor of the Bank of Canada. He is the only person to head the central bank in 2 different countries. Scanning, because I'm not going to read all 55 of these, but I think this one's important. When he was a teen, he competed on separate English and French teams that took part in Reach for the Top, a game show that fired tough questions at academic nerds. Not my words, that's what's written. I mean, you think about what comes with the political landscape and what we're in right now. That's a pretty good, check to put in a box. He also did play hockey. He was the 3rd string goaltender. I mean, for Harvard varsity's team, 3rd string though. Well, no Blackhawks, at least not in his future.
It's more fighting than Trump ever saw. Oh,
Ooh,
anyway,
dude.
yeah, that was tight.
Paul,
But
did you choose a side already?
No, not necessarily, because nobody wins in a trade war.
No.
But the thing is so as of right now, while this is, being recorded versus when it airs, we went from every month it was going to happen, then it wouldn't happen a day later, then they would do things and we would do things. And then the second they actually decided to put in tariffs, we would back ours down. Well, when they did, now we're going after, aluminum and steel. And so now they're going after aluminum and steel. And then lots of other products. You have the option of, going from Canada down to Mexico through the Pacific. And the thing is that we're in a weird position to where Donald Trump has still repeatedly said some things about like Canada being the 51st state. This guy doesn't really play around and has already said that he won't talk to him unless he can acknowledge like Canada's sovereignty, which seems to be a stumble that Trump seems not to get past. All of that to say, what that's going to do to transportation and moving freight, that's insane. Because that's only like, the thing is, you look at it where it's at right now, that's not going to stop. That is the vibe that I have, especially because we're talking about doing that with so many different countries. That's going to get into more and more areas of freight, which is going to take the freight market and make it even more rough because, well, people are going to buy less. So there's less to move.
Well, I think there's a perspective here that we're not taking into account. Can you imagine those countless drivers that have to cross the border at any given time, and you're an American driver going into Canada in this kind of environment? It can't be a place that's very welcoming right now with all these tensions. So you add that perspective, you add the cost, you add the world we're living in right now and all this uncertainty. I think this is one of those things that's going to continually evolve and manifest into people trying to plan where they're going to put their pieces on the board. And it's really tough because if you're a business and you're trying to maneuver your pieces on the board to be the best case scenario for your business, how do you plan when the plan seems to go out the window the very next day or maybe even the next hour? I mean, it's a pretty uncertain time, and uncertainty does create a certain type of market. And we're seeing that play out right now. Now, whether it gets better or worse, that time will tell. But it's one of those things where it's constantly evolving.
I mean, we've had 4 different variations of what tariffs are in play this week.
It's like the news cycle right now.
Well, but like and so I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. That is peak uncertainty.
Well, regardless, this is something that's always evolving. We're always trying to bring the first part of the show to the news. We're going to try to stay on top of it for you. But you can also, I encourage you go down these rabbit holes, read the articles, and try to connect them to your place in transportation, and then see if you can forecast it. And if you can, reach out in the comments. We're always looking for a Nostradamus of freight.
Yep. Real quick though, just because it's the theme, who do you think is going to hold out longer?
I think you underestimate the bullheadedness of our administration. So I'm banking on that. If I'm placing money on this, but this, I don't know. This isn't Trudeau, man. Like, this is not somebody I'd be wanting to sit across the table from. It's like, yeah, let me test this.
That guy's terrifying. Anyway, but yeah,
but it is Canada. Hey.
You can only be so polite for so long. But all right. Yeah, and there are definitely things are not moving like syrup. So I think it is time to go behind the desk with Tenstreet.
Now it's time to go behind the desk. We got Christy Choice from Tenstreet.
Hey there. Woo, how's it going?
It is a lot going on, but the one thing that's stable is you guys in behind the desk. So what do you got for us this week?
Oh my gosh. Well, just a few little tidbits here and there. You know, we always like to bring something of value to the wonderful folks who listen in to Cents Per Mile. And so one of the things that, you know, in my travels, I have seen is that people don't always know their internal processes. And so carriers, I just want to encourage you that it's really important that before you start trying to solve problems, you get the details. And Charles, you know this firsthand. You have to know if it's a process problem if it's a people problem or if it's like a technology or a setting problem or what the issue is, your ATS vendor is more than likely more happy to have a conversation with you. I know that we are at Tenstreet. We love having conversations with our clients about, hey, what can we do to help improve some of the things that you're experiencing, especially because there's so much uncertainty going on out there right now. I personally travel around and sometimes I'm like, if it's a people problem, that just means we need to sit and train and, work with somebody a little bit more. And if it is a process problem, then we need to work together to smooth it out. And so, before you kind of go in with both guns blazing, trying to solve problems, understanding what that is. And if you're clueless, we want to know that as well, right? Because there's no harm in just saying, I don't know where to start. But work your resources, lean on your resources, because we're all in this together right now.
That is awesome. And thanks for stopping by to share that. And the user conference is coming up here soon. And that's one of the places where you can tackle exactly this. Is it your process? Is it your technology? Or is it a people problem? And the cool thing about the UConnect conference, they have a whole team there to sit down and talk to you in real life, in real time at the conference. So definitely be checking out for UConnect by Tenstreet. And thanks for stopping by the show.
All right. Always glad to be here. And yes, I'll see many of you at UConnect 25 in the beautiful Las Vegas. Check you later.
All right, we're back and it's time to make sense. We told you it's about choosing your fighter. Are you going to choose a direction where you're focused on your recruiting, your marketing? Maybe it's finances or the speed of getting your finances, or maybe it's fraud prevention and best practices to optimize your operations side. There's no better people to talk to than the people that we have coming up. So from a finance perspective, I'm bringing Ryan from TAFS onto the show. Ryan, how's it going? Welcome.
Good. How's everybody doing?
We're here and it's going to get exciting because from the operational standpoint, from a fraud fighting standpoint, your fighter is going to be Danielle from MyCarrierPortal. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, looking forward to this conversation. From a marketing standpoint, I'm going to tag my best buddy, Paul Gibson. There was a lack of better options available today, but he's going to be a perfect stand-in.
Yeah, 1-2 punch. 1-2 punch. That's what this is.
And then from recruiting, I'm going to speak to that because that's kind of my realm. Guys, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market today. There's a lot of people choosing like which is the best direction. And I know a lot of cases it's going to be a combination effort. But if I'm a carrier and I'm looking for the place that's going to be impactful, I think each of us have a perspective and experience that we can offer to allow them to choose which way is going to be the best way to start. So I want to start off with Ryan from a finance perspective. What are some of the best things that carriers could be doing to position themselves for success in today's market?
I can't think it's overstated enough that communication and relationships are key with all of this, whether it's, relationships with the customers that you work for, relationships with your employees. Relationships are always going to be key because it's going to open up those lines of communication that allow to understand what's actually going on with your finances, where you're making money, where you're not making money, where you can budget things out, where you need to actually increase spending because it's going to generate more revenue. So just having open lines of communication and relationships are always going to be key.
Now, Danielle, from your perspective, if I'm a carrier and I'm looking at these uncertain times, where's some of the areas that I can kind of give myself some stability?
Well, especially as far as fraud goes, really just basically just like what Ryan was saying, really building relationships with your customers and your brokers and, making sure that you're working with somebody who is actually going to be paying you and not just a scamster out there because, that can definitely hurt your wallet. You're running a long run and, you're not getting paid later because they're actually double brokering and then they disappear. Or, you're actually involved in a whole theft situation. If you're backing up a trailer into another trailer and transloading in the middle of a, road, more than likely that's not a legit delivery point, and you guys can actually be responsible for it because you're the ones who signed off on the bills at the shipper. So that takes a huge toll on your wallet just by not kind of doing your due diligence on your customer or your broker as well. So
you're telling me fraud is not stepping out because of these two heavyweight contenders out there right now. Like they're still in here. They're still grinding away to try to take your money.
Oh, yes, definitely. They're definitely trying to take everybody's money. I mean, everybody's getting hit on all fronts, shippers, brokers, carriers. Honestly, I feel like carriers' wallets are probably getting hit the worst. And it's not talked enough, and they're not talked about enough. And there's also not enough solutions out there for carriers. So kind of on carriers front, you guys have to be due diligence and, really vet your brokers, talk to them, have relationships like Ryan said. So that's kind of my advice on that.
Now, Paul, I'm starting to see a theme here, but we'll see if it continues. Your number one piece of advice in a market like this, from your experience, what's the best way a carrier can position themselves?
Marketing. Obviously. That's why I'm here.
Employed.
Right. Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's one of those things you think about it, right? So, like, a good example is the tariffs. Everything's, if, let's say, like, just for perfect math, it doesn't work out this way, but theoretically, like, let's say tariffs are up 25%. You're in a business where your cost is going to go up by 25%, right? Think about that the same way, almost in like a reverse loss of if you had a new competitor and like enter the space and they took 25% of your market share. Well, the only way you can really combat that, one of the best ways would be to get back 25% of the market share, or in this case, take 25% of the market share from your competition to get back to where you were.
Now, see, from a recruiting perspective, everything that all of you have said play into that role. If drivers have to get paid on time, carriers have to have operating cash, drivers don't want to be participating in fraud and stuck in the middle of one of those situations. And the marketing has to be in tune with the job. But I do think from the recruiting and retention side that there's a big play there as well, with all these carriers' margins crushing them at every angle. The one thing that they can truly control is making sure that they have the right people in place and they're taking care of those people in this market, because it's no secret that it's expensive to address turnover. You want to keep those people set. You want to keep them happy, and you want to have conversations along all these fronts, in my opinion. And that's how you have that transparency that keeps those people informed and there. So I do think that there's a value in everything that everyone's presenting here. Now, mistakes are expensive. We know this to be true in trucking. When you step on a landmine, you're not just blowing off a toe. You might blow off a leg or half your torso if you make a misstep. So let's talk about mistakes. The biggest mistakes you're seeing carriers make right now, from a marketing perspective, Paul, what would that be?
Not like there's so many times I see companies, the first thing that they drop is marketing. And marketing is something that builds your brand, being top of mind for people. That's something that builds. That's something that you have to maintain. And if you drop that, you're going to have a stopgap, and you can't just immediately turn that back on and become top of mind, because your goal is to have multiple touch points to convince people to either make a purchase or come work for you or use your services when the time comes. And if you're not top of mind because you shut everything off, you're going to be behind the eight ball when everybody else who had turned their marketing back on or left it on are now top of mind because they have those touch points that you missed.
That's awesome advice. And it is something I've seen on a consulting side, where people tend to go to their marketing first as a cut. And I think that messaging is more important in markets like this than people realize. You could be the best at what you do, but if nobody knows you do it, does it really matter? All right, Danielle, what is the biggest mistake that you see happening out there right now that could have the most impact for a carrier?
I think the biggest thing is really just the kind of like what I just basically talked about, but making sure that who you're working with is actually going to be paying you. You don't want to run 1,000-mile run and never get paid for the load. I mean, that takes a big hit on everything. You're coming out money for gas, for the pay for your driver, all that type of stuff. So really knowing who you're working with, and taking, those extra few steps, maybe calling the phone number that's listed on FMCSA for the broker, verifying that person actually works there. And, if it's a email address that doesn't really make sense, like really check everything. It doesn't take that much time. There should be
training behind that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there training? And I'm asking out of ignorance on this one, because when I was a driver, there was never any training on what to look for from a driver's perspective. So you think that there could be a training component, like companies like yours? I'm sure that you're well versed in this, that there's an opportunity to outreach there. And I can't imagine people don't want to hold those conversations because that's your realm.
Right. Well, and that's really why, I mean, our customers really aren't like our paying customers are not carriers. So we're doing this type of education stuff, coming on podcasts and talking to carriers. I'm going to Matt's really just to find out what all they're dealing with on, because there's stuff that I don't know that, as far as fraud and theft, because I'm not a driver. I'm not there every day. So learning about that so that way we can kind of come up with a program, at least like a YouTube video on like a quick how to do this or how to do that. Because I think we've got the broker space pretty much down, the shipper space, but the carrier space is kind of the last frontier of how to help them out. Because really, we're just trying to solve a problem that's, how many billions of dollars wasted every year. It's crazy. So
could you imagine the kick-ass marketing that could happen if that money wasn't wasted out the window and people were able
Right.
to throw it at a campaign? Like, wow, Paul, talk about job security. If we can solve that problem, I think we could build out this education series.
Let's do it.
Now, Ryan, you deal in money. I'm actually coming up with t-shirt ideas for you between yesterday and today. I'm having tons of ideas, but in the money side of things, that's very important to an operation, especially in markets like this. What's some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing or things that people need to be paying more attention to that can better angle them for stability?
Yeah, from a factoring point of view, especially a company like TAFS, where we target heavily on new entrants coming into the market, one of the things we see that leads to a lot of failure is the lack of understanding what it takes from being a driver to becoming an actual owner of a business. They just kind of, they see, I can work with the same customers with my company that I currently work with. Well, how are you going to take that customer from somebody that already has a relationship that they've been working with for years? How are you going to take those loads away from that existing relationship and move it on to your book? Who's going to handle the back end of your business? Who's going to do the collecting calls? What it takes to actually submit an invoice to a broker or to a shipper if you're lucky enough to have those early on. So it's just lack of having a strong business acumen and a resource behind you to actually help you along the way. Because there's, early on, one misstep, a $2,000 invoice that you don't get paid on, it's going to cripple your business and probably put you under.
Yeah. I think from a recruiting point of view, one of the things that I want to say is focus on your recruiters.
Yeah.
You can spend money in marketing. You can do all this wonderful stuff, but spend money and time on reinforcing your team because this is not an easy market. Whether you're in marketing, recruiting, brokerage, this is a tough market. So you want to reinforce your team. I appreciate you guys coming on the show. We got to take a quick commercial break.
We're excited to announce CDL Connect sessions powered by CDLLife. 8 engaging webinars filled with insights and fresh strategies to transform how you connect with drivers. Join us Thursday, October 24th for our 5th session, Effective Lead Nurturing, Driving Applications to Hires, with Bobby Thompson, Chief Product and Technology Officer of CDLLife. Discover key strategies for lead nurturing, orchestrating nurturing processes, unifying lead flow, picking up applicant signals, and leveraging retargeting to boost hires. Click the link in the description to register and browse future sessions.
All right, we're back, and that was a lot of great conversations. I highly suggest you check out TAFS and talk to Ryan or Danielle from MyCarrierPortal. They're a wealth of information. You can also poke Paul and I, but as everything that's great out there, it's got to come to an end. So thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. Please don't poke me.